Well, nearly a decade ago, a baby named Joel was beaten. Now, he recovered, but then it happened again. The I-Team has taken a closer look at how the system failed baby Joel and how it forever changed a once vibrant and healthy child.
This was Joel at 2 years old after he recovered from a severe beating when he was 2 months old. Foster parent Paula Cheney nursed him to health after Joel and his older sister, who was not physically harmed, were placed in her home through protective custody.
He did get a lot better, a lot stronger. And then he started to just come around and to crawl, and he was really thriving.
Joel's father, Hobart Weathersby, pleaded guilty to gross misdemeanor child abuse and neglect. The sentence, 12 months in jail. According to Metro Police, Joel's mother, Alicia Corte, gave detectives inconsistent statements about how Joel got hurt, but she was never charged. A series of events would later unfold that would place Joel in harm's way again.
You're blaming yourself somehow, even though you've stepped up so much. Why?
Because I feel like I could have done more.
The children's mother worked with Child Protective Services, or CPS, and had increased contact and visits with both children. And 2 years after they were placed in Paula's home, she received unexpected news both children would be placed back with their mother.
My heart dropped because I wasn't prepared for that.
Paula says Joel was attached to her. A CPS spokesman tells the I-Team it's up to the biological parents on whether foster parents can stay in touch with the children. Paula says she offered to help the mother, but she was warned by a CPS supervisor to stay away.
It's like a death. I don't know if you've experienced, it's like a death.
2 months later,
I just had a feeling that something wasn't right.
Paula learned from a CPS worker Joel had been beaten again.
And he was just so little, and I just started praying and I'm saying, Lord, he may not make it through the night. I said, you fight, and I'll make sure this time that you're safe,
Joel did survive, but his life would never be the same. Joel's mother was arrested and convicted of felony child abuse. According to a CPS spokesman, the supervisor who Paula says warned her to stay away from the children is still employed, making a $94,000 salary.
I think that she should have a cell right next to the mom.
CPS does not release information about specific cases, but a spokesman released a statement about reuniting children with parents, which reads in part, "These decisions are reviewed internally by supervisors and/or a multidisciplinary team that includes clinical staff, the DA's office, and other child welfare experts, and then by a judge who can overrule our recommendations. A single supervisor does not make decisions on their own regarding removals or reunification."
How you doing this morning, Joa?
That second beating left Joel wheelchair-bound, nonverbal, and legally blind. He's also fed through a tube. In January, he turned 10 years old. For Joel and his sister, home is with Paula. She adopted them.
My heart desire is to make sure that this little boy has the best opportunity and the best that life has to offer. Yeah, we as adults failed him the first time. We did.
Alicia Corte is expected to be released from prison later this year, and she may be deported. Vanessa Murphy, 8 News Now.
Tomorrow night, right here on 8 News Now, Joel's story does continue.
A tragic child abuse case led to a bond between the prosecutor and a foster mother. Tonight, the I-Team's Vanessa Murphy shows us how that Valley woman is now in need after years of giving so much.
This little boy, Joel, had already been through so much at just 2 years old. He had recovered from a severe beating when he was 2 months old. His father was sent to jail. Then as a toddler, it happened again. Joel's mother was sent to prison this time.
Rise and shine, baby Joe.
But that second beating left the once healthy child needing around-the-clock care.
Ready for some water, man?
Paula Cheney starts her day just after 5 in the morning.
It needs to work.
With suctioning, medicine, bathing, and more.
Oh, you think it's funny, huh?
As she gets Joel ready
He's having oatmeal for breakfast.
to head to school.
Then I'll put him some banana in there.
The first time Joel was hurt, he and his older sister Jennifer, who was not physically harmed, were placed in Paula's home through protective custody. She was a foster parent. Child Protective Services then placed both children back with their mother. After the second time Joel was hurt, he was expected to be placed in an out-of-state facility.
The biological relatives, they only wanted Jennifer. They didn't want him. And so I'm thinking, so I told him, I'll take him.
Paula adopted both children.
At this point, I'm thinking, I gotta do something. I can't let him go this time.
Paula took on a little boy who was never going to walk again, never going to be able to eat on his own, never be able to go to the bathroom on his own. And she didn't even blink twice at it. So to say that that is rare, it is an overstatement. Like, she is truly such a special person.
Jacqueline Bluth was the prosecutor on Joel's mother's case, but her involvement with the family didn't stop when that criminal case was over.
Always saying, is there anything that she could do?
The chief deputy district attorney has helped the family and even showed up with Christmas gifts. But there's one thing she's hoping the community can rally together for.
They need a wheelchair accessible van.
How was school, baby Joe? Let's get your jacket on here.
Joel is about 80 pounds and growing. Paula is 72 years old.
Come on. Come on.
Because it's so difficult for Paula to load Joel in and out of her car,
Not raining, that's good. Come on.
even a medical appointment is a struggle.
And you wait right here.
So Joel's mainly restricted to home and school.
Okay.
I think she blames herself a little bit for that as well, because she wants him to go out, right? She wants him to live as normal of a life as possible.
That second time Joel was beaten, he was expected to die. Paula stayed by his side and prayed. When Joel did survive, he was expected to be in a complete vegetative state. But with Paula's care, he's improved more than anyone could predict.
He calls you Mama.
Mama, yeah, Mama, yeah.
What is that like to hear that from that little boy?
Well, just to see him overall, it's just so heartwarming to see him, and you see how happy he is. Brush that baby's teeth.
In January, Joel turned 10 years old.
I just think that there are certain cases out there and certain people that are so special that they stand out. Not to say that I haven't worked with amazing families, because I have, but very, very few have struck me like Paula has.
Vanessa Murphy,
I think she just deserves so much more than I could ever give her.
8 News Now.
Pretty amazing woman, right? Prosecutor Jacqueline Bluth has started a GoFundMe page to help raise money to get Joel and Paula that wheelchair accessible van she really needs. If you would like to help, you can go to our website at lasvegasnow.com and click on the story.
Tonight, a story that will warm your heart and really restore your faith in humanity. 8 News Now had a front row seat to a kind of generosity not seen very often. Thank you for joining us at 11. I'm Brian Loftus.
And I'm Denise Valdez. We recently introduced you to Joel and his adoptive mother, Paula. They needed help. And tonight, the I-Team's Vanessa Murphy reminds us just how tough their life could be and shows us a miracle no one saw coming.
Rise and shine, baby Joe.
Paula Cheney's dedication to her adoptive son Joel knows no bounds.
Ready for some watermelon?
At 2 months old, he was placed in Paula's home through protective custody after he was beaten. Joel was placed back with his mother 2 years later and was abused again. A second beating left the once healthy child unable to walk and needing around-the-clock care. Paula adopted Joel and his older sister, who was not physically harmed.
My heart desire is to make sure that this little boy has the best opportunity and the best that life has to offer.
Jacqueline Bluth, who prosecuted Joel's mother for child abuse, has stayed in touch with the family, helping with Christmas gifts and support for Paula as she cares for Joel.
I think she just deserves so much more than I could ever give her.
She noticed how Paula, who's 72 years old, struggles to transport Joel, who's in a wheelchair. He's 10 years old and weighs about 80 pounds.
They need a wheelchair accessible van. Too young,
As
like
the I-Team reported, the Chief Deputy District Attorney has been trying to raise money for it. Our two stories on how the system failed Joel and about Paula's dedication to the boy got the attention of viewers like Paul Jaramillo.
We were touched by the story, and having used mobility vehicles for years, we know how easy it makes your life.
Paul lost his ability to walk about 5 years ago after being diagnosed with PLS, primary lateral sclerosis, which progressively causes weakness in muscles. The disease has also taken his voice. Paul's son James also uses a wheelchair due to an accident 14 years ago. The family, which runs Par 3 Landscape and Maintenance, a long-time and successful Las Vegas business, contacted the I-Team to say Paul would buy Paula and Joel a van.
I'm so grateful that this story impacted my dad to the extent that it did, and we're able to be involved now.
The I-Team visited Paula Monday, 1 week after the first story aired, for what she thought was an update on how the community responded with comments and calls.
I'm telling you, it's just been really, really good, surprising.
Paula didn't know what was waiting outside.
I'll let you get the door.
Hi!
Jacqueline walked Paula outside for the big reveal.
So,
Oh, stop, girl!
so this right here is yours.
Thank you so much. I thank you so much.
Okay, you deserve this. You deserve this.
I hear Joel's laughing and smiling.
Over here, we have the Jaramillo family.
This is Paul.
So Paula, he saw you on the news.
He did. Oh,
And he was so moved by your story that he went and he bought this van for you.
he did. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Life will be different for Paula and Joel now with this 2016 Honda Odyssey.
I need to meet Joel now.
Please meet you. Oh, yeah, come on. Meet you.
Hey, buddy.
He won't be confined to school and home anymore.
It's something that hits close to home for our family, and my dad watched the broadcast last week on the news that Vanessa did about your situation, and he was touched and wanted to do something.
Well, I appreciate it. I really do appreciate it. I just don't have the words. Words just don't show.
Well, you don't need any words, just take the keys.
It's all yours, buddy.
In addition to the Jaramillos, 8 News Now viewers donated more than $50,000 to a GoFundMe account called Wheels for Joel.
We set up the fund with the idea of getting a van, but thank you to the Jaramillos, we didn't have to use that money. And so I'm setting up a trust for Joel that we can put that money in for his future treatment or for your needs and taking care of him.
The Las Vegas Valley stepping up after a tragedy.
It was an act of evil and malevolence that put Joel in this situation. It takes an angel like Paula in order to pick up the pieces and help him lead a normal life and take care of him.
Vanessa Murphy.
You're the true angel.
Oh, thank you.
8 News Now.
Oh.
It's pretty great, right? The GoFundMe page remains active for anyone else who would like to contribute for Joel's care. Prosecutor Jacqueline Bluth says for anyone who has donated and wants their money back since the Jaramillos paid for the van, they can contact her and she will give them their money back. For more information, you can visit the online version of this story at lasvegasnow.com.
Well, a family gets a settlement with Clark County after the death of a child. It is a follow-up to a story that the I-Team first brought you last year. Vanessa Murphy is here with the most recent update. Vanessa.
Yeah, viewers really responded to this original story we first did last year, and now Clark County will pay $100,000 to Abigail Bennett's family. Metro Police say the 3-year-old was beaten to death by her father. Court transcripts reveal there were warning signs. The child's grandparents tried sounding the alarm, and CPS failed to take appropriate action. The family sued, and now taxpayers will foot the bill for the agency's failure. The settlement was approved by Clark County commissioners this morning. As the I-Team reported last year, CPS hired an outside agency to work with the family. That agency was not prepared to deal with such a potentially dangerous situation. Abigail was killed in 2016. Court records show she was beaten so badly, her heart exploded and she was suffering from a broken back and ribs days before she died. We interviewed Abigail's grandmother last year, who was obviously heartbroken. The father, Justin Bennett, is awaiting trial for murder. Abigail had 2 siblings. This money is expected to go to an estate and the 2 surviving children. We reached out to the county for a comment about the settlement and to ask whether changes have been made within the agency or whether anyone has been held accountable as a result of this failure. A spokesman says they're not permitted to discuss specific cases or personnel matters. It's an answer we are used to hearing, or a non-answer.
That is horrific. Thank you so much.
A Las Vegas mother is trying to hold Child Protective Services, or CPS, accountable after the death of her son. She says CPS could have helped prevent his murder.
The I-Team's Vanessa Murphy has this exclusive story you'll only see here on 8 News Now.
Paul Jones was on probation for child abuse when his son and daughter were taken from their mother and placed in his care. Months later, Jones would be arrested for the murder of his son, 13-year-old Aaron.
It's hard to believe my son is dead.
Jj Thomas is Aaron's mother. She and her attorney, Marjorie Hoff, sat down with the I-Team.
It's not something that I would ever understand.
Thomas says Aaron and his sister were removed from her care by Child Protective Services, or CPS, because she could no longer take medication for mental health needs due to a pregnancy. She claims Paul Jones had no prior relationship with the children before they were placed with him in June of 2016. This court document states he was awarded custody by CPS. He lived in this 1-bedroom at the Siegel Suites with his wife and, according to a police report, 11 other children. The year before, he was arrested for abusing his stepdaughter, who claimed he hit her with a cable. Court records reveal he didn't even follow the rules for probation.
He ended up doing it again. This is why CPS shouldn't have never trusted that.
According to an arrest report, Jones did do it again, this time to Aaron. Detectives say they learned from several people Jones would punish Aaron by making him stand against a wall with his arms up while other children were encouraged to hit him with anything they chose. Aaron wasn't allowed to protect himself. By December of 2016, Aaron was missing, but no one told police. And according to detectives, Jones kept cashing Aaron's Social Security checks. In April of 2017, family members began a search of their own near the Jones home and discovered human remains.
Come to find out, when they tested the bone of the teeth, it was my son.
That's really hard to think about.
That is.
Paul Jones spoke with 8 News Now from jail shortly after his arrest in 2017.
It's like all fingers are part of that being when I didn't do nothing to him.
Police say Jones later admitted to striking Aaron in the head, and when the boy wasn't responsive, he put his body in this desert area. Now Jj Thomas is suing Jones, along with Clark County, CPS, and several employees. The lawsuit alleges CPS didn't do a background check on Jones and never visited the 2 children after they were placed with him.
Not a single follow-up.
Whose fault is that?
That is CPS's fault.
What about the argument that CPS didn't harm the child, Paul Jones did?
CPS did harm the child. A child can't decide where they're going to live or where they're going to be placed. CPS absolutely made the decision to take this child and his sister and put them in a dangerous environment. That was not their choice. It was not their mother's choice.
2 CPS employees are specifically named in the lawsuit. Both still work there. According to a CPS spokesman, Carol Falcone is a senior family services specialist making nearly $85,000 a year. Paula Hammock is the assistant director making nearly $123,000. Also a plaintiff, Siegel Suites.
There's no way these kids were going through the horror that they were going through without there being some alert to the people that own that property.
The I-Team reached out to CPS about this case. A spokesman said he could not release specific information due to Nevada state law. He directed us to a child welfare disclosure form which reveals numerous contacts with the family since 2006.
It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking.
Hoff insists this lawsuit is aimed at fixing this system which could have saved Aaron.
They're failing at protecting our children. And if people like Jj aren't brave enough to take him to task for it, it'll continue to happen.
Vanessa Murphy, 8 News Now.
We gave the county numerous chances to respond to the story on the record, and our request was repeatedly declined.
The district attorney's office is seeking the death penalty against Paul Jones. Jones's attorney is arguing that he is intellectually disabled and therefore cannot be given the death penalty.
A hearing to decide that is scheduled for March.
The I-Team has been shedding light on how the system, which is supposed to protect children, in some cases has failed them.
According to 2 Clark County commissioners, though, an effort is underway to fix Child Protective Services. Vanessa Murphy talked with them and is here with their story.
Child Protective Services has had a history of problems, and who suffers? Children. Now, this is the first time any commissioners have responded to the stories we've worked on over the past year and a half. We also have a warning. Some of the content in this story is graphic and disturbing.
We ought to see the kinds of things you've shown us as serious tragedies. And there ought to be a continuing commitment to find cracks and fill them.
We're always making changes. Would I tell you that any system is perfect? Absolutely not.
The Clark County Commission oversees Child Protective Services. Jim Gibson and Marilyn Kirkpatrick are the only commissioners who agreed to sit down with the I-Team after we exposed system flaws. A lack of internal communication, employees not researching cases, and as a result, some children being left in abusive homes.
I miss her terribly.
Bernadine Morimoto says she tried to warn CPS about her granddaughter's father, but in 2016, 3-year-old Abigail was killed. According to the child's autopsy, she was beaten so badly her heart exploded, and she had broken ribs and a broken back days before she died. Justin Bennett is in jail awaiting trial. The family sued CPS. Gibson and Kirkpatrick were not on the commission at the time of Abigail's death, but they did approve a $100,000 settlement with the family.
One child lost is one too many.
Governor Steve Sisolak did serve on the commission at the time of Abigail's death. Politics Now co-anchor Steve Sebelius asked him about CPS at an 8 News Now debate during his run for governor.
I mean, it should be an immediate, it should be given a higher priority.
The Nevada Department of Health and Human Services also oversees CPS. The now governor Sisolak kept Richard Whitley as the director, a position he's had since 2015. The I-Team took a closer look at the governor's budget proposal and noticed only a slight increase in funding for CPS.
We see a lot of the same kids in different agencies. It would be great if the state would fund. My friends at the state would probably choke me right now, but if they would actually fund a system where you could have all of that in one.
Kirkpatrick says work is already underway to improve the computer program CPS employees use. She also points to better communication between CPS and the court system. And Gibson says changes are underway with how cases are reviewed. Both insist this isn't just an agency problem, though. They say it's a community problem.
Anytime one child dies, it's too many, right? It's a tragedy. I couldn't imagine that scenario whatsoever. But we have to remember that there is somebody that's accountable for that, the parents, right? They have a responsibility.
But when parents fail, the agency tasked with stepping in to protect children and help prevent deaths like Abigail's is CPS.
As tough as it is to sit, for instance, in this seat and have some unique responsibility for family services and all of the things that are a part of that, I think it's also important that the public is fully aware, because I think that an informed public is a public that can help step up.
And one recommendation from Commissioner Gibson: if you think a child is in an abusive situation, report it. We have information on how you can reach CPS on our website at lasvegasnow.com.
So clearly for that story, you talked to two Clark County commissioners. You were also trying to talk to the head of the CPS in Clark County for this report. What happened with that?
We reached out to Tim Burch through a spokesman, and the spokesman said, well, you already talked to two commissioners, so he's not going to sit down with you, okay? We also requested an interview with Governor Sisolak, a more recent interview. We were instead provided a statement that is on our website.
Well, for years, the I-Team has been exposing failures at Child Protective Services and how abused children sometimes just fall through the cracks.
But a state review of CPS paints a different picture. The I-Team's Vanessa Murphy is here with this story that you will only see on 8 News Now.
The families of 27 children who died and 24 others who nearly died in 2017 and 2018 in Nevada had previous contact with child welfare agencies. The Legislative Counsel Bureau, or LCB, which reviews state agencies to make sure they're working like they should, zeroed in on the deaths and near deaths, a combined 51 cases. The result, no system failures here.
You couldn't possibly come to that finding realistically.
This memo states, quote, based on our review of the case files provided to us through December 31st, 2018, we found no evidence that the fatalities and near fatalities were caused by the agencies not complying with state and federal laws, end quote. But 13-year-old Aaron Jones died during the time period the LCB claims it reviewed. He was placed with his father, who was already on probation for felony child abuse. Months later, the child was dead. Attorney Marjorie Hoff is representing the child's mother in a lawsuit filed against Clark County's Child Protective Services, which alleges the county and CPS workers could have prevented Aaron's death.
It's hard to believe my son is dead. It's not something that I would ever understand.
Our interview with Jj Thomas aired on February 25th. 2 days later, this memo became official.
I was not aware of this Legislative Counsel Bureau audit letter until you had brought it to my attention.
And now that you've read it, what do you think?
Now that I've read it, I think it's extremely surprising and inaccurate.
Here's what we know about the Aaron Jones case. In June of 2016, the 13-year-old boy was removed from his mother and placed with his father, and a court record states respondent was awarded custody by CPS. Thomas says Aaron and his sister were removed from her care by CPS because she could no longer take medication for mental health needs due to a pregnancy. The father, Paul Jones, was on probation for felony child abuse for hitting his stepdaughter with a cable the year before. He also lived in a one-bedroom apartment with his wife and 11 other children, according to records. By December 2016, Aaron was missing, but no one told police. And according to detectives, Jones kept cashing Aaron's Social Security checks. In April of 2017, the boy's bones were discovered, and soon after, Paul Jones was accused of murder.
There's some systematic failure that a case like my client's could fall through a crack and say that that was not a preventable death.
Hoff believes CPS didn't do a background check on Paul Jones before Aaron was placed with him, and says no CPS workers checked on Aaron after he was placed with him. She, along with I-Team sources, question whether the LCB reviewed complete case files, including Aaron's. So the I-Team asked the LCB, and in an email, a legislative auditor wrote, staff review all documentation relevant to the specific circumstances of the case.
3 pages is not enough to determine what happened to these children.
An arrest report describes what police say happened to Aaron. Jones would punish Aaron by making him stand against a wall with his arms up, while other children were encouraged to hit him with anything they chose. Aaron wasn't allowed to protect himself. Hoff says CPS could have protected him, but there's no mention of that in this review. And if Aaron's case wasn't included here, could there be others? The I-Team's repeated requests for an interview with the head of Child Protective Services in Clark County were denied. Vanessa Murphy, 8 News Now.
A trial date for Paul Jones is set for January. We do have the full copy of the review at LasVegasNow.com, as well as emails from the Legislative Council Bureau. A 2-year-old boy is dead. His father and his girlfriend are accused of murder. Thank you for joining us at 5. I'm Brian Loftus.
And I'm Denise Valdez. The child's grandmother tells the I-Team that she reached out to Child Protective Services prior to the boy's death, but her calls for help were not addressed. The I-Team's Vanessa Murphy sat down with her for this exclusive interview. Vanessa.
Brian and Denise, 2-year-old Jj Newman died in February, but just this month, his father and his girlfriend were arrested for murder. The Clark County coroner rules Jj's death a homicide due to multiple blunt force injuries to the head and neglect of care. Medical staff said this was one of the worst cases of malnourishment they've seen, meaning Jj was starving. His grandmother tells the I-Team the coroner told her Jj also had the drug methamphetamine in his system. 27-year-old Chad Newman and 36-year-old Haiti Razzo face first-degree murder, child abuse, and conspiracy charges. Jj died on February 5th. According to jail records, they were arrested July 19th. Today, we sat down with Shelby Veneno, Jj's maternal grandmother. Her grandson was living with his father, Chad Newman, his girlfriend, Haiti, and her 5 kids in a mobile home in North Las Vegas. Menino says she reached out to Child Protective Services and police because she was concerned about Jj. She feels like her concerns were not being taken seriously. Now her grandson is dead. What do you think they should have done?
I think they should have went out there and checked on him and demanded to see him.
The only public document available after Jj's death from CPS lists 2 previous contacts with the family from December 2016 alleging abuse, which was found unsubstantiated, and from January 30th of this year, just a week before Jj's death, a referral was coded information only. We reached out to CPS for any additional information or a comment, and a spokesman said via email, state law does not allow us to comment on individual cases. Coming up at 6, the I-Team did obtain the arrest report for the couple, detailing Jj's final days. Tough story. Back to you.
Child after child slipping through the cracks. The I-Team has been investigating Child Protective Services, highlighting the system's failures.
And because of our stories, one county commissioner is trying to take action. Commissioner Tick Sagerblum wants a review of child fatalities in Clark County. The I-Team's Vanessa Murphy is here with this exclusive update.
Anytime there's a child death, there's a problem. Let's face it.
Commissioner Tick Sagerblum sat down with the I-Team on August 12th to talk about Child Protective Services.
I think everyone is committed to trying to make things as good as possible, but you're just dealing with problems that, I mean, and they're just very incredibly difficult.
And now, a couple of weeks later, he is asking his fellow commissioners to get on board to create a panel which would review child deaths. The I-Team has reached out to commissioners about Child Protective Services and the system failures we've reported on. Commissioners Marilyn Kirkpatrick, Jim Gibson, and Sagerblum, the only ones willing to discuss CPS. Sagerblum says it's a challenge to oversee the agency since information about child cases is protected by state law.
Truthfully, it is very frustrating for all of us to be able to say, well, it looks like everybody says, yes, we did a good job, but we can't tell you what it was.
Currently, CPS faces a lawsuit after Davon Brannon Banks was killed by his foster father in 2017. Craig Dickens was convicted for murder and is in prison. And the mother of Aaron Jones, who died the same year, is suing. The child was placed with his father, who was on probation for felony child abuse. Paul Jones is charged with murder. In 2018, the county agreed to pay $100,000 to the family of Abigail Bennett, who was killed in 2016. Her grandparents tried to warn CPS about her father, Justin Bennett, who's now accused of murder and faces the death penalty. The I-Team has interviewed family after family who argue CPS needs to change. Just last month, this grandmother told us she believed CPS could have protected her grandson, Jj, who was killed in February. In July, his father and girlfriend were arrested for murder.
What do you think they should have done?
I think they should have went out there and checked on him and demanded to see him. This is my grandson. I just want justice for JJ.
Vanessa Murphy, 8 News Now.
And after that story aired about JJ's death and how his case was handled, Vanessa reached out to all of the commissioners as well as the governor. She did not hear back from the governor's office nor most of the commissioners.
The Clark County Commission decides there is enough oversight of Child Protective Services. Thank you for joining us tonight at 6. I'm Kirsten Joyce.
And I'm Denise Valdez. Commissioners declined to move forward with the creation of a panel that would have reviewed child deaths. The idea was proposed after system failures were exposed by our own I-team. Vanessa Murphy here now with an update tonight. Vanessa?
Yeah, a lot of this is based on trust. Commissioners admit due to state law, details about cases cannot be shared with them, so they're putting faith in county management, CPS higher-ups, and oversight already in place to try to make sure abused children aren't falling through the cracks.
I've seen the TV reports, I've read newspaper articles, and truthfully, that does raise questions that I think deserve answers.
Commissioner Tick Sagerbloom proposed the creation of a blue ribbon panel to review child deaths and how Child Protective Services handled cases. Tim Birch, the director of CPS in Clark County, told the commission Monday 69 children died in 2018, and CPS had prior contact with families of 16 of them. Commissioners admit getting answers is a challenge.
Essentially, I don't think we as a commission have ability to go in there and do the dive into it the way we would need to.
Here's an example. In July, the I-team reported on the death of Jj Newman. His father and his girlfriend are accused of murdering him. His grandmother said she sounded the alarm before JJ's death, and she believes CPS could have saved him. But when the I-team reached out to CPS and commissioners to follow up on the grandmother's claims, 432B comes up, a state law which requires case information to be kept confidential, even with commissioners who oversee the agency.
I was through the roof, very upset at the last death that I saw on Channel 8. Was very heartbreaking, but I've also been advised that there is just so limited information that could be given to me.
It's hard to talk about things you really don't know the details about.
Assistant County Manager Kevin Schiller told commissioners oversight is already in place at the state and federal levels. He pointed to continuous improvement through internal and external reviews and litigation. 8 News Now has reported on 2 current lawsuits and a $100,000 settlement involving families whose children were killed after CPS handled their cases. Birch pointed to changes already recently made.
We've made over 18 policy changes in the last 18 months because we've been listening.
Commissioner Larry Brown pointed to the volume. 32,000 children and their families having some sort of contact with the system last year.
Are there errors? Are there mistakes made? Absolutely. But that's life.
Commissioners chose not to create a blue ribbon panel to review child deaths, but they say they are trusting systems and managers already in place
Because I have confidence in them.
and keeping an eye on them.
I asked hard questions myself, and a lot of it came from my very first interview with Vanessa, and then I went back and started investing in the time.
The director said last year CPS received 20,000 calls. 11,000 of them turned into investigations. Denise, back to you.
It's a big workload. All right, Vanessa, thank you. 2 Las Vegas parents are accused of child abuse, and the allegations include neglect of a sick child.
As the I-team discovered, there were warning signs even while Child Protective Services was supposed to be monitoring the family.
The I-team's Vanessa Murphy has this exclusive story you'll only see here. Now, we do want to warn you the details in this report are of a sensitive nature.
Look on Samaya Red and Chance Campbell's Facebook pages. They appear to be proud parents, but they're accused of abusing their children, including one with medical needs so badly the kids were hospitalized.
Did you actually abuse your kids?
You're abusing me.
I'm not abusing you. Did you leave your kid unattended?
The I-team tried talking to the couple moments after they appeared in a Las Vegas courtroom Monday for their criminal case.
Okay, so they're both present, out of custody. Good morning. And
we're setting a status check as to what, negotiations?
Yes, sir. In August, Metro Police say 2 of the couple's children were diagnosed with an infection, medical neglect, and malnutrition. One had possible cigarette lighter burns across their stomach, the other had bruises. One child told police the couple would leave the children alone in an apartment with no phone while they went to a casino. According to police, Red admitted to hitting her kids with an extension cord and belts, and also that their 4-year-old daughter was missing her feeding tube for a whole month. Food and water would come out of the child's stomach. Red claimed she had a lot going on, meaning too much to get medical treatment for her child.
Did you leave your kid unattended and go to the casino?
The allegations of abuse are bad enough, but the I-Team has uncovered how Child Protective Services was monitoring the family in the 5 months leading up to the police investigation. There were visits to the home and at least 6 reported contacts with CPS and medical professionals. CPS was aware the child did not have her feeding tube for weeks. Then finally, on August 20th, a home health care nurse noticed extreme weight loss within a week for that child and took action. That led to the children being taken to the hospital and later the parents' arrests.
Did you leave your kid with a hole in her stomach without a feeding tube?
I gave you my card. Contact my lawyer.
You guys don't have another comment?
A Clark County spokesman says the CPS worker assigned to the case is still employed, making nearly $70,000 a year. As for the case, CPS cites privacy laws and doesn't comment on specific cases, so we don't know how the children are doing. In Las Vegas, Vanessa Murphy, 8 News Now.
Doctors and nurses say a toddler's death is one of the worst cases of malnutrition they've ever seen. And it's a story the I-Team first broke. And tonight, we're learning more details about the final days of the boy's life.
The I-Team's Vanessa Murphy has a story you'll only see here on 8 News Now. And we do want to warn you, the content in this story is disturbing.
Shelby Veneno remembers her grandson JJ as a happy and healthy baby.
So bright, so loving. You know, you said, come give me a hug, and he would. I just miss him.
JJ died on February 5th. Investigators say the 2-year-old was starved, beaten from head to toe, and had methamphetamine in his system.
It's unfathomable.
A medical examiner testified JJ died from blunt force trauma and neglect of care contributed to his death. And JJ didn't suddenly pass away. He was abused over time, and he slowly died while living in this mobile home with his father and his girlfriend.
Mr. Newman, have you received a copy of your criminal complaint?
Prosecutors are seeking the death penalty for 27-year-old Chad Newman and 36-year-old Heidi Razzo. They're charged with murder and child abuse. They declined on-camera interviews with the I-Team, but grand jury transcripts reveal what they told North Las Vegas police. Newman moved in with his girlfriend and her 5 kids around September 2018. Razzo said JJ had, quote, white boy complex. Photos of her biological children show them well-fed with no bruising. Again, look at JJ. Newman blamed Razzo. He said she mistreated and abused JJ. And after one incident, JJ told him, "Dada, JJ, go," meaning the toddler wanted to leave. But Newman kept his son in that home. He said he noticed a downward spiral in JJ's health in the 2 to 3 weeks before his death, but never took him to the doctor.
It's just sad. It's sad that somebody could do this to this baby.
Veneno is JJ's maternal grandmother. She says her daughter gave up her parental rights.
Growing up, Allie never really wanted to be a mom.
But Veneno herself tried to stay in JJ's life. She says she last saw him on September 24th, 2018. And after that, Newman wouldn't respond to her, while Razzo wouldn't let her see JJ. She tells the I-Team she reached out to Child Protective Services for help. According to this document, a referral was received on January 30th, and it was coded information only. That was 1 week before JJ died. It appears no one from CPS entered the home where they would have found JJ suffering.
I think they should have went out there and checked on him. and demanded to see him.
CPS will not comment on specific cases. It's unclear whether any CPS employees were held accountable for failing to check on JJ. The I-Team reached out to the Clark County Commission, which oversees CPS, about JJ's story. But it appears CPS won't even share case information with these officials, citing privacy laws. In September, Commissioner Tick Sagerblum proposed more oversight of CPS, but he was told there's enough oversight. To Veneno, it wasn't enough to save JJ's life.
I'm afraid that JJ thought toward the end, like, my grandma's not coming back for me.
The I-Team reached out to CPS again before this story aired. A spokesman said state law prohibits them from discussing specific individuals and cases, and we shouldn't interpret that answer as a confirmation of any information. He also said every year CPS receives, quote, thousands and thousands of calls that do not allege abuse or neglect of a child. We investigate all calls in which there is allegation of abuse, neglect related to a specific child, end quote.